Well, hello, everybody, and welcome again to the Weirdly Magical podcast with Jen and Lou. And I am Lou. I'm an astrologer and a writer.
And I'm Jen, and I'm an Akashic healer, reader, and creator of the Illuminating Journey cards. And I dabble in numerology.
Mm-hmm. And I dabble in tarot and things as well. They all tie together. So here we are. As we record this, we are in the middle of a Scorpio moon that seems to be causing a lot of deep, dark, magical places to be triggered within people. But Mercury stations direct tomorrow, and then we lead into the full moon on the 26th at 3 degrees in Pisces. And because it's a full moon, that means the moon will be at 3 degrees of Pisces and the sun opposite at 3 degrees of Virgo. But before that as well, on the Mercury station direct, we also have the third and final Jupiter trine Neptune at 15 degrees of Scorpio and Pisces, and that will still be very much active on the full moon on the 26th. We'll also be in Virgo season because the sun will move into Virgo on the 23rd, and we have a couple of other aspects, but we also have an interesting kite pattern on this full moon we'll talk about a little bit, that brings in retrograde Saturn in Capricorn at 2 degrees Capricorn and retrograde Uranus in Taurus at 2 degrees of Taurus. So that means there's an awful lot of earth and water going on. But underneath it all, there is underlying also a fire grand trine connecting some goddess energy that we'll talk about a little bit. And the day after the full moon, Mars stations direct at 28 degrees of Capricorn, and Mercury, newly direct, will square Jupiter in Scorpio, and that will connect to that Jupiter-Neptune trine. So there's some fire coming in underneath too, but overall the full moon itself, there's very little air for a start. So we could talk about that really with the lack of air. And we've had a problem. We've had a lot of that this year with very little air going on, and the only planet that is in an air sign on this full moon chart is actually Venus in Libra, and she's really not connected to anything in this full moon chart, so she's out there on her own in the sign that she rules. Otherwise, it's, apart from asteroids, this earth and water energy for me, Jen, reminds me of at the beginning of the year, I wrote a kind of year ahead thing, and I talked about slowing down and sculpting and having all the ingredients that you need in your life. And now it's time to kind of mold it and shape it into something real. And I'm really getting that feeling from this full moon, along with very quite major spiritual messages coming through. What about you? What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a wonderful take. And I remember you talking about that sculpting, which is a very powerful expression for the year.
Mm.
So for me, being that numerologist, I'm looking at and listening to what I'm getting from the Akashic Records. The 3 that is with the sun and moon is a key player. What's interesting here is we have the 3, and the minutes is a 12, which is another 3.
Mm.
So it's like a double 3 there. The interesting thing about the 3 is that it's this energy of playfulness, or inviting us to put aside the way we've seen the world. Like, this energy of being very serious about how we live in the world. Like, there's this overriding theme I've seen that people take themselves very seriously. They they want to insist that everything's done in a certain way. And I feel like this moon is shifting us out of that space and going, that was the way you did things. That kind of functioning has come to an end. And now it's time to bring your own focus, your own sense of intuition. So your focus and intuition into this playful energy of rebirthing, being in, just playing in the sand, in the mud, in that sculpting material, if you will, in the clay. Like it's not time to get very serious and go, okay, I'm going to make a Michelangelo piece. We're not there yet. We don't know how to do that. What we do know is that if we focus on what we believe in for ourselves, that we understand, and we come from a place of joy, we come from a place of lightness, letting go of the idea that, it's got to fit in a formula, and be free in that expression of, this is who I am. I'm just like a kid would, like, wow, I've been freed out of school. I'm breaking through the classroom. I'm running out. I'm jumping in the puddles. I'm trying all these different things. I want to see what I can create. So it's a very curious energy, a very joyful energy. And I agree with you, Louise, that idea of new information coming in. When I look at this chart and I look at all the numbers and the layout, to me, this is that place where we're beginning to listen and hear the messages, these divine messages, the triangles that are showing up, these trines, right? These you mentioned 3, right? Here we have the 3 again. They have 3 points. The triangle is the most powerful symbol we have because each corner is equal. So there's that rebalancing, that movement of, I'm breaking free of a system, a rigidity, to be playful, to be me in a playful sense, to express myself. For me, I see the 3 as the number of self-love. And when we are willing to just be who we are without trying to go, is somebody saying something about me? What's happening? Then we are free to make fools of ourselves in glee and discover new things. The other interesting thing here is the Jupiter and Neptune activity that's happening, that final one, which is the 3rd, again, another 3. The 15 is this number of alchemy. And there is an alchemy that's happening in this chart. There's a fixed star formal hut, apparently, that runs at, well, it's not an apparent star, it is one, but it's one of the ancient fixed stars, a gatekeeper that opens. In the last moon, we had Regulus, the king. Formal hut is this energy that they say is connected to the Archangel Gabriel. And this is kind of humanizing our experience. So it is a number of, formal hut has to do with making things real in a new way, right? Changing shape.
And where is that star, just for the listeners?
3 degrees, I think it's 3 degrees 7.
Of Pisces.
Yes. So it's a gatekeeper, and it brings in magic. It can also bring in confusion, right? Or some kind of trickery, especially with the moon, apparently. Bring in some trickery that is will work out well in the end, right? So subterfuge, but in the end, it will work well when you're connected to integrity. So for me, I see this idea of us changing form, like we've been the shape, like these good little people doing what we think we're supposed to do and being very anxious about it. And now this moon is kind of saying, okay, now it's time to take a new form, take a new shape, like turning into something new. We're taking these pieces of clay, the part of being so human, so rigid, and the part of being spiritual, bringing them together and making something new. Like we're in play, we're in joy, we're in creativity, and experiencing something totally new. The other thing that sticks out, oh, so I was going to say the 15 degrees, and it's 15 degrees is that alchemical number 2. So again, it's that energy of recognizing the spiritual aspects of who we are, and the physical aspects, like what they call the animal body. It's like those things we've been in denial of. Like we've been trying to fit ourselves into, this very kind of clean body. Like we don't shit, we don't do anything, we don't have any messy thoughts or ideas. It's been kind of this little fake cookie, made in a factory. The industrial complex that's coming to an end is being submerged. We're taking these aspects and creating something new, where we are those sculptors you talk about, Louise. I think there's a great synergy there. And one other thing that stands out for me is this idea that Venus is unaspected and she's totally alone. So all this other energy going, and she's the only air or breath coming in, right? That sense of standing in her own place. And she's at 18 degrees, which is a significant number this year. 18 is kind of the falling down of the ego, the kind of coming forward, this breaking down, because 18 is endings, and we're in an 18 year, and it's a very powerful way of connecting to the deeper sense of self, our deeper sense of love for humanity. In our exploration of finding ourselves, we actually touch the hearts of others, which is so powerful.
And as well, the kite configuration, I did want to talk about a little bit more as well. That's including both Saturn and Uranus in Earth signs. And Saturn and Uranus, of course, are the old and modern ruler of Aquarius, and we are moving into the age of Aquarius. And another thing I've been saying for months is that this age of Aquarius is about bringing kind of in the best of the old structures, the really old, along with the new, and doing things in a different way, and about shifting what we've already got. So none of this is about creating something from scratch that we don't have already. We kind of have everything we need, and we have to bring it into the focal point, which is at that 3 degrees of Virgo, into the sun, which is our core, and make it practical and useful, what we already have.
Yes, and that's brilliant combination, right? You have not only the old and new, and I think you're absolutely right. It's this, we're tearing away all the plastic or the fakery to get back to the original old value and what is valuable and powerful in this new time, and finding that meeting place, right? Because of the on one hand being outrageous or bringing in new ideas, on the other hand actually taking the steps to make it happen. And then with the energy of the sun, our light body, which we're in a 19-month, this is about shining our light. This is about coming into acceptance, into balance, into that creation we've been talking about, right? It's like that moment, like the picture I'm seeing in my head is that moment that on the Sistine Chapel, right, when in Michelangelo, where he shows the finger of God touching life, bringing light into form. So it's like we're creating these new forms of self and bringing life into them.
Yeah, exactly. And another just slight thing about the Saturn and Uranus coming into the kite is that they're still both retrograde. Of course, we've still got a lot of retrogrades on this chart. Mercury being the only one of the 7 as we record that has gone direct. And so there is an element of bringing this big shifts into the patriarchal institutions that we're ruled by, or that we've given our authority away to. And I think there might be some big shifts in our monetary values and our money itself possibly as well with all this. There's a real feeling for me of getting more spiritually aware of what has meaning instead of all, well, you called it the plastic, and I agree, it's, this disposable kind of materialistic society that we've become. What really matters? What do we need? What gives meaning? What's useful for our life? I'm seeing all that too. And really the way to connect to that energy and figure out what has personal meaning for you and what you want to release, because it is a full moon, so it is a release coming on after some pretty major eclipses. It's saying, connect with spirit within, spirit around you. It's the only way to really get clear on what has meaning for you. You won't get the answer from somebody else or a book or anything like that.
Yes, it's kind of funny as you're talking. I keep seeing this figure or this idea of, people going and saying, okay, I'm going to make these new figures, right? Like the monster makers or whatever, right? They go and they're like, oh, I'm going to bring someone to life, and bringing these different aspects, the old, like, wow, I know this works, and then this new idea, and putting it together, and then going, it'll do whatever I want, right?
Yes.
And then the minute you kind of put your finger, or the energy runs through, the bolt runs through, this thing suddenly wakes up and it has a consciousness. And interesting, the consciousness of an innocence, right? It's like, innocence doesn't mean you're naive. It just means you're open to doing things differently. Yeah. And you're joyful in it, remembering that this energy is about being in joy and being willing to take risks, making things real, or doing things that are necessary to us, or that going and taking back our world and going, I don't want to have all this extra material we don't need. Let's be more mindful of what we have. Let's be more in touch with it, our supply, our resources, the way we treat the earth. So we're basically taking back that fakeness that has been created so that some people can benefit, right? It's very beneficial. I think we talked about it before.
I think we did, yeah.
Slaves, right? And here they're thinking they're making more slaves, and here these people, we are all coming to life going, wait a minute, so if we have a fish bottom, we can swim better in the sea, and the head of a human, whatever. It's like we're bringing in these psychic and spiritual aspects that are turning on a light inside of us and making us realize, like, wow, freedom, it only comes from when I speak out.
Yes.
This day actually is a 9 day, a 9 universal day, which is, again, the repetition of the 9, that and it ties us into forgiveness, this kind of acceptance of brotherly and sisterly love. The endings you talked about, it's like, what are we releasing? Like, in order to be free and to be freewheeling, right, to go forward, we do need to let go of these old concepts or these old ideas that people have pushed on us.
And of course, Pisces is a very complex sign, being the 12th sign. It's kind of a bit of a mix of all the others. But all these words you're using, and the moon is in Pisces and Neptune's in Pisces, which it rules, is about surrendering, release, but also it's kind of the amniotic fluid from which we're created and which we birth. So it's got all those themes in it, and that's where this energy really is all coming from. It's pointing down to our humanness, our human suit in Virgo, if you like. But we're really being asked to be that spiritual being in a human suit now. We're really being pulled towards that more and more and more. And this is kind of huge, I think, after the eclipses, that this is happening with these numbers, with this energy, with this kite configuration. It's and with all these retrogrades as well, so that it's a very internal journey, very inner journey on this full moon. and I think some people will be feeling a little bit, and I'm seeing it already, I have to say, there's a lot of fear about, because in all this chaotic, watery energy, that often brings a lot of fear-based thought into people, and a lot of kind of almost irrational fears. So you might see that around you quite a lot if you're aware. But really, that you're being asked to to spend time in meditation, in whatever practice you do, whether it's prayer or something creative that puts you in that kind of zone where you're really connected with all that is. And you're being asked to really get into that state to figure out where you want to go, where your heart is. So, you okay?
Yes. Yes, sorry, things are falling as you're saying that. So it must be an important... it's like, suddenly my book fell down. But
sorry, poltergeist.
Yes, I think that's a really yes. The spirits pointing. This is pay attention. I think what you're saying is a really important part of this. That when we're going into the watery depths, we have to remember when we're creating something new, when you're in the action of creation. Now, all these years we've had time to grumble and mumble about what we didn't like, but we didn't need to take action. We could just kind of move on and keep doing what we were doing. And now we're in this space. Yes, we're in this place where we can be drowning in water, in messages, in all kinds of things that we've ignored for our whole life and beyond. So it can feel overwhelming. And that's our typical response will be, I'm in fear. I personally have felt fear in the past week or two, but it's been a very different kind of fear in that sense that I'm not gripped in the fear. I've been feeling fearful, but also aware that by taking action, I can shift out of it. So the fear is coming from inaction or holding on to old beliefs. When we're still choosing to think we're helpless or hopeless, then the fear becomes greater. And it makes me think of some of the stuff that's going on, in our world out there in the political arena. Great examples. There's been some people speaking out, some, generals and people speaking out against the president and really going, like you could say, they may have been in fear and they may have been saying it's none of my business. And all of a sudden it's like, the only way I'm going to change this is by speaking out, like telling people this is my boundaries and saying it in a way that we can all hear it. It's not hysterical. It's not crazy.
Yeah.
It's very practical. This is like practical movement. We can hear
Virgo. Virgo's so practical.
That's right. And it's what we need right now. It's like, yes, this makes sense. It's not fear mongering, like which is happening with the president, whatever. There's a lot of fear mongering because that's, the energy around that is to create confusion.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so
to be fair, there's a lot of fear on the other side too. Fear of
we're not. I'm not taking sides. I just like, yes, everyone has fear.
Oh no, I know you weren't. I just wanted to point it out.
Oh, good.
People will witness it. They'll see the fear caused by that energy, and then the fearful reaction to it as well, like the world's ending kind of thing.
Exactly. I don't know what to do. This is terrible. People are not acting the way they're supposed to. And the point I'm making here is for me, and I think true for others who are looking to change or shift, and that what this moon is saying is you have to take action. You have to declare what you're standing for. You have to go, I don't care if you revoke my privileges or whatever. You're not going to shut me up. Yes. This is basically the bigger picture for all of us is I can swim here in fear and just get more clogged up with fear and just be trapped. Or I can
bring it down to Virgo and make it useful and practical, and which is Mercury ruled, of course, as well, Virgo. So speak from
yes, right? So perfect. It's so perfect that here is Mercury.
You okay?
Yes, speak
Yeah.
from the heart. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I talked over you because I couldn't hear you.
Oh,
You
it's
went
fine.
silent. But
I actually
it,
wanted to read one of the symbols for this full moon.
yes.
I've got the Chandra symbol. I don't know if you've got the Symbian symbol,
Okay. Yeah, I
but
did put it over here.
for that muddy kind of energy, I hadn't actually looked at this Chandra symbol before now, and it made me laugh almost out loud when I read it, because the Chandra symbol for the moon at well, we look at Pisces 4 because we always go up one, is mushrooms springing up everywhere. You're being engulfed by external and internal factors and facets that suddenly are there everywhere and come right in, no boundaries, no separate container. The universal life force carrier and representative, incapable of pulling away from the collective call of life, is intoxicated with it all. And there is a real intoxicated feel to this full moon, I do have to say. But Pisces represents kind of intoxication anyway, so massively taken over by emergent currents and whatever feels vitally important, impressionable and suggestible with an unbelievable depth and intensity, absorbing the shock of all that is happening here, raw and impelled to rally people around, to bring everybody alive, to make it happen. You ooze conviction and resonance with the basic core spirit in each and all. 300% all the way. Not that you can have 300%, but you get the idea.
There's that 3 again.
But there's that 3 again. Yes. So you get why I laughed when I read that, because mushrooms kind of ferment in mud. They come out of mud. And I've been talking about the mud. Yeah,
they grow in the dark.
They do. They grow in the dark, and mushrooms are actually very human-like almost as well. Their DNA has got great similarities to us, and we kind of are rebirthing from that mud again to become these new beings. So,
yes, what we've just been talking about, and I think that's it's a very key thing here, is that so much of this energy is, as you said, we are under this, what did you say it was? This, kind of under magic or something.
Intoxication.
Intoxication, right? We are under that. In fact, I think I read there is that part of Full which is about magic and the occult and all of those things.
Yes, I think I remember reading that about that fixed star. Yeah.
That's right. So there is that aspect, but there's also the darker aspect. So I think the intoxication is this recognition, I'm free, right? Like, wow, I can do things. And then we have this practical energy going, yes, what are you going to do? Look at your resources. What do you already know? What can you bring in? And how are you going to make it real? So there's that constant kind of energy of that kind of 1, 2, 3 here, right? The 1 is kind of like, okay, what do I need to do? Focus, meditate, whatever it is. What is it that I'm looking for in my next step? And then going and taking action, attending to the detail, speaking out, whatever it is, and then getting to that place where, oh, wait, I've moved forward, right? I'm on the next step, and then beginning again. So this is a very practical energy that's taking us, because, you don't build new things by just talking about it.
Exactly. One of my good friends, we're actually in a little mastermind together. She calls herself the practical mystic, and this is that kind of energy, to my mind.
Yes, that's exactly what I think I read Formalhat is about, is the practical mystic, which is about changing your form. Like we're talking about bringing in the reality of your mystical side into physical form, and changing that idea of changing the way you see the world, like recognizing that things around you, people, nature, maybe things you've never noticed or have had contempt for, are as real as you and have the same right to have space. So everything deserves a place at the table.
Yes.
And that's how we do this. We build our part so we can join others who are building their part. We can't just lie around going, I don't know what to do, I'm not going to do anything, or I'm just going to throw more mud at it.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to take us where we want to go.
Yeah. So did you have the Sabian symbol, or do you want me?
Oh, yeah, I had it here. Let me just read it.
Yeah.
It's
And then I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about Mars going direct and things like that as well.
Oh, yes. There's some other interesting things.
Yeah.
So this one, Pisces for the Sabian symbol, heavy car traffic on a narrow isthmus linking two seashore resorts.
That's a bit like that seashells thing.
I know, right? That was a hard one to say. Okay. So it's that's really the same thing you're talking about, right?
It is.
Here we are on a narrow ledge. It's about traffic. It's about recognizing, this is my vehicle. I have to get across the road. I want to get to the seashore. How am I going to get there when there's all this traffic in a narrow passage we're passing? So I think, again, it's revealing there's action to be taken, but thoughtful and using dissemination, like using the idea of what is it that I need to do? What's mine to do? How can I be more present and not just, mad because there's all this traffic? Like, just taking my little path inch by inch. I'm going forward. I know why I'm here. I know what I'm here to do.
I do have to say I just want to tell people that there can be a lot of confusion in this, with all this kind of energy, and especially, and that takes a nice little segue into, especially because, as I mentioned at the start, on the full moon, pretty much, the Mars is stationing direct. He goes direct the day after, on the 27th. At 28 degrees and 36 Capricorn. And I think we'll just talk about that, really, because that's another, almost immediately after the release of a full moon, because there's always a full sense of fulfillment, and we're coming out of the eclipses, so there's some kind of fulfillment from the eclipse period. But then the next day we shift direction, and Mars retrograde has been a bit of a devil to my mind. He's been causing all kinds of antics. So I'm looking forward to him going direct. But as we know, the time around the actual station of a planet, or apparent station, because they don't actually go backwards, is the most powerful. The days around it. So Mars, and he's still in his out of bounds state. He's still kind of rogue. He's still kind of acting unlike Mars usually does, ever. So I'll let you talk about the numbers first of all. 28, 36.
Yes. That's a very interesting 28. I see 28, 37. That's like two.
Oh, okay.
Ones.
I may have written it down wrong then.
Okay, so that's interesting. The 28 struck me straight away, and then 37 also makes a 10. 2 and 8, 3 plus a 10, which is a 1. 10 is this energy, the 1 and the 0, bringing the love and light into our bodies, bringing the masculine and feminine together. The 28 itself, not only a new beginning, but it's also this, the 2 and the 8. It's about communicating or connecting, working with people you trust, even yourself. If you're in this place of confusion, you're starting new connections, you're building new ways of being, you're trying to understand who you are. So you have to come back to that focus, that one, the direction. What is my next step? What do I need to know now? I'm in confusion. What do I need to focus on? And with Mars, which is that energy of forward motion, of action, it's also telling us to make sure that we trust who we're working with and the choices we're making. This is an essential aspect of the 28. If we don't, if we let ourselves be confused by the kind of glamour of something, oh, that sounds right, that's the words I want to hear, okay, I'm going to go with this person, we can get pulled into the wrong directions or put our energy where it's not going to help us. So it's very important to be true to the energy, because this is about creating success, moving through obstacles. This is about making wise choices. Like right now, in a new stage, we have to be connected.
And
Meditate, do what we
sorry.
need, right? No, that's okay. Go ahead.
And I was going to say, looking at the signs as well with Mars retrograde, and the fact he is in this out of bounds state and has been during his whole retrograde. He started in Aquarius, which is very much about doing things differently, kind of breakthroughs and breakouts and break free and all those kind of energies, rebellion, all that kind of stuff. And then he retrograded back into Capricorn, the sign of the rules and our institutions. And it's yet another symbol that, I'm talking at a personal level, that we're kind of creating our own new rules to live by, and breaking free of the strictures of social strictures, family rules, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't mean that we go completely rogue and start doing, thinking it's okay to go around doing things that aren't socially acceptable. And I'm talking about the really bad. But it just means at a soul level, really, not being held in by, you have to look a certain way, you have to speak a certain way, you have to do your business a certain way, or it doesn't work. This is really about deciding what works for you, in your life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you disappeared for a minute, so I don't know if you
sorry. Yeah.
So, but that's okay. I don't know. It's going in and out. This is, Mercury and Mars doing their
I know.
thing.
Well, we're trying to do this on a Mercury station. That's kind of weird anyway. So you didn't really have to comment on what I said anyway.
But I want to say, but I do want to comment on it because I think it's really important that this too is echoing that whole energy of the moon, this idea of looking back at what's valuable, going back into Capricorn. What is valuable about our institutions? What have we learned? What have we discerned that we need for ourselves to bring in and to take it forward into mixing in the new age? What can we bring in? How can we shake it up without, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So this is what, again, is the energy. And Mars is showing us, I think, being out of bounds and acting in this way, this time, is really showing us that our ideas about who we thought Mars were, or whatever we're looking at, the ideas we look at, and we say, that's a fixed idea, that's the way it is, it can never change, is not true, right? That's an illusion. And that's, to me, is what the greatest thing about this energy of Mars is going. Mars isn't just about war. And what is war to me? Like, what does it mean to use my energy to bring about the things I want without, burning everything up around me? Like, I don't want to destroy everything so I can have what I want, right? Exactly. The freedom. So that was my point. And I think the Aquarian age, this is about freedom, but personal freedom. To me, the recognition of freedom, and we talk about, I want to be free, I want to be able to do whatever I want. Yet freedom has its own responsibilities. It's us needing to take responsibility for the choices. I said that. This is what I want. So we can't go around blaming someone else because they wouldn't let us do it. That's the energy here. Like, take what you need, but be doing it to bring out who you are, not to continue to suppress it. Because if you're living on, I'm going to control people, I'm going to manipulate them, and they'll do what I want, you're just heading for disaster. And it's not very effective in the long run.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, because I don't like to make these overly long, but I did want to mention one of the three that we didn't mention yet, and that's the true Black Moon Lilith. I don't know if you've had chance, Jen, to follow my post this week, but I had a bit of an eclipse paradigm shift myself. I've been using the mean calculation of Lilith, which kind of puts her in a more of a straight line orbit. But pretty much right on the eclipse, she came and was like, no, you start using the true Lilith because it's more my true nature. I'm not smoothed out and smoothed over and made even. So, but anyway, the point is the true Black Moon Lilith on the eclipse is at 3 degrees of Aquarius, and she's conjunct the South Node, which makes that another important pivot point. So.
Yes, and it's a very powerful, right? There again is that 3 energy. I'm recreating myself through joy, through being. Joy is really about expressing who we are in our fullness. It's not about being perfect or look at everyone, I'm happy all the time. True joy is about expressing every emotion, feeling it in the moment, and then releasing it, allowing ourselves to be foolish and full. If you think about the energy of Lilith, this is what she is, this woman with so much emotion and life and ability, and this is who we all are. We all are those creatures that have so much we want to experience and express. We don't want to be in a straitjacket. So having that at 3 is kind of that repetition of that. And of course with the what do you call them? I've forgotten the name now, about the moons, the past at 5 degrees. Slipped out of my mind.
The moon's nodes?
Yes, that's it. The moon nodes, 5 degrees. 5 is about freedom. 3 is playfulness, openness. They're both about moving forward. And again, it's not about letting go of everything. It's about choosing what we need to do and doing it in order to shape ourselves. And as we go along, we make adjustments. We come up, we all kind of clumpy and full of pieces of clay, and then as we move along and we get smoother and lumpier in different places. So it's that recognition that all things are moving forward.
Exactly.
Right.
And of course, she's on the South Node, which is a point of release again.
Yes.
But within Aquarius, I see it more as releasing the need to try and mold yourself to fit in with your peers.
Yeah, exactly. Talking about sculpture, right? That's the perfect thing.
Yes, exactly. But it's also about releasing the fear of being seen as different or weird or unique. So it's about releasing that as well. And it's moving towards that Leo again, which is about the heart, about just follow your heart's desire, follow who you are at heart, all those heart words.
Yes. Yes. And that's the ultimate safety, right? For us, that we crave safety, the opposite of fear, to know we are loved, that when we have that connection, when we do what we divine, like we express that who we are in our greatest connection, not only with source, but with the earth. Just like an animal or a tree, we're expressing our true selves, our true natures. And that is our greatest safety, not following someone else's rules.
Yeah. Whew. Well, I don't have anything much more to say about this. It's going to be kind of intense, but in a very intoxicating way. That's a fabulous word for it. I'm glad I read that in the thing.
Yes, I do want to mention that those so many of those goddess energies, female energies, the 25 degrees.
Yes,
you had mentioned it. I think this is the underlying theme here. 25 is the number of the kind of, I see it as like the Joan of Arc number, right? Where we're willing to fight to be heard and to express the things that we may have suppressed out of politeness.
And Pallas Athena is kind of Pallas Athena, who's at 25, is actually kind of a Joan of Arc figure, really. Wise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So they're joining forces. I think it's really exciting to see them all joining forces and supporting us underneath. It's like our great mother, this love we look for, the great mother, the earth, the great universe, holding a net saying it's safe to, just fly out of the nest.
Yeah, and of course it's in a fire grand trine, which has a more phoenix energy sort of thing. So, that's coming up underneath all this other energy. You're right. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah.
I forgot that we hadn't mentioned that yet. So thank
So
you.
much to talk about, so much movement.
I know there's so much in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, if we leave it there with the full moon and Mars going direct, we'll be back in a couple of weeks to talk about the next new moon. We'll be into September already. Holy mama, how did that happen?
I know, right?
So, Jen, how can people find you?
Well, they can find me if they look up my name, Jen Duchenne, jenduchenne.com. I'm all over the place at Jen Duchenne something, but I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm doing...
Sorry, go on. No, you.
I was just going to say I'm doing weekly readings with my cards on Facebook.
And her cards are amazing, by the way. So.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm having real fun with it. So that's on Facebook, but I'm all over Instagram, etc. So you can find me Jen Duchenne or jenduchenne.com.
And pretty much same here. I'm Google Louise Eddington. You'll find me, on Facebook, Twitter, all those places, and Instagram, and louiseeddington.com. I have a free Facebook group called the Planetary Magic Cafe. I also have a Patreon if anybody wants to check it out. You can follow me on Patreon, patreon.com, Louise Eddington, without becoming a patron, and I do some public posts. So you can just check it out by just following, first of all. But otherwise, yeah, just my name, because it's who I am. And it's who Jen is too. So for now, until next time, in about 2 weeks' time, it's goodbye from Lou.
And goodbye from Jen.